In North America, there are probably only one or two trailerable 20-foot Bluewater boats that I would ever consider trying to cross an ocean. This has to be one of those sailboats. Hi, I'm Joe, and welcome to Motor City Boat Works. Let's get to work.
Welcome back to the channel. You know, every day I'm in my workshop working on my pocket trawler. It's a huge project that occupies almost all of my time, but today's a little different. I'm on the road just an hour away from the Boat Works. This is a boat that I have been searching for more than 20 years. I just can't help myself. I think I'm gonna buy it.
I'm so excited. Check this thing out. This is a Halman 20. It's a Bluewater pocket sailboat made in Canada. It's got very salty lines, and man, it's just awesome. This thing is beautiful. We're gonna haul it home to the Boat Works. It's the new addition to the Boat Works.
I'm not kidding around when I go look at these bucket list boats. I'm serious about buying every single one of them. This one was too good a deal to pass up.
There's probably only 150 of these boats that were ever made.
Stick with me because we're going to get all into the details of this boat, and a little bit later I'm going to take you through an assessment, put you in the mind of a boat restorer. What do I look for? What do I see? What's a deal breaker? When should you walk away? We'll talk about all of that later on. I hope you stick with me.
The reason I always wanted a Halman 20 is, you know, more than 30 years ago I owned a classic 30-foot sailboat. It's full size, had a full keel. It was a very heavy boat, and it was very challenging to kind of own that thing. It cost a lot of money. But I loved having a Bluewater sailboat that I could take out on the ocean and really put through its paces. I always thought it would be very cool to have a smaller boat, also with a full keel, but something that was trailerable. You could sail it in big water and you could launch it, do it yourself. That's where the Halman 20 comes in the picture. Now I need another boat like I need another hole in my head. But now that I'm in retirement, I've come to realize that finding these unusual boats, well, that's really half the battle. They just don't become available that often. And I've decided at this point in my life, I'm just gonna buy them when I find them and put them away for another day.
Now, if you're not familiar with these boats, they were made by a company called Halman Manufacturing out of Beamsville, Ontario, Canada. The Halman 20 came out in 1977, was made up into the 80s. The company went out of business somewhere in the mid-1990s. They made the Halman 20, the Halman 21, and the Halman Horizon. It's a 27-footer. You've probably seen my episode on that. These boats come from a long lineage of very salty, seaworthy, Scandinavian-style Bluewater boats. Now, you can find a lot of information on the internet about these boats, but what you need to know, the unique look of these boats comes from a type of Danish fishing dinghy called an ostejol. 400 years ago, this style of fishing dinghy was very popular, used in the Baltic Sea. In 1960, a Dutch naval architect by the name of Ir.B. Malta-Muller designed a 20-foot pocket cruiser called the Midget 20. They're a very popular classic sailboat in the Netherlands. They have an active owners club. There were actually a variety of these boats made in Northern Europe in the 60s and 70s. Probably one of the most famous is the Lynaes Senior. It's an 18-foot version of this boat sailed around the world solo by a retired Dutch school teacher. Sometime in the 1970s, a version of this boat was produced in Canada by Nordica sailboats. And in 1977, Halman started making their own version of this boat. This is why you'll sometimes hear the Nordica 20 and the Halman 20 referred to interchangeably. But we'll talk about the actual differences a little later on. Now, who got the idea from who is not really something we'll get into. All these companies are now out of business. But what you need to know is that these boats are proven Bluewater sailors. They've crossed oceans. In some cases, this design has gone around the world, and they've actually crossed the Atlantic several times. The Halman is the final version of this boat.
When they were new, they sold for around $15,000 all the way up to $20,000, depending on the model and all of the accessories and the finish level. In North America, there are probably only one or two trailerable 20-foot Bluewater boats that I would ever consider trying to cross an ocean. This has to be one of those boats.
All right, today I think what I'm going to do is go through the boat, bow to stern. We'll see what's going on inside. We'll go through all of the items that are there, all the bits and bobs, and see exactly what we've got. And we'll do a little bit of an assessment and get an idea of what I might do with this project.
Now, an assessment is not to be confused with a survey. A survey is kind of like a home inspection, but it's for a boat. And usually you pay somebody who's certified, they've been trained in what to look for on various boats. Oftentimes you get a survey for insurance purposes or pre-purchase, something like that. What I'm going to be doing is just an assessment where I kind of just look over the boat and get an idea in my mind what it's going to take this boat to the next level, or what exactly it is that I want to do with it. I'm going to be looking for several things. I want to kind of get an understanding of how complete the boat is, any big ticket items that need to be repaired or replaced. Are there going to be any major repair jobs going forward? I like to break my assessment for a sailboat down into several categories. I would like to start with the exterior of the hull. I like to look at the interior of the boat. I like to look at the mast and the rigging for the boat. I like to look at its propulsion system if there is one, and then of course the sails that might go with the boat. And then there's like a final category, which is kind of like all the accessories and all the leftover stuff that comes with a boat, anchors and safety gear and cushions, all this other sort of stuff that generally is found in a sailboat.
So let's just go over some technical details on the construction of this boat. It's important to kind of know, well, what is the hull made of? How was it constructed? What is it that causes this boat to have such a great reputation? The hull is made up of 4.5 ounce mat bonded to another 24 ounce of woven roving. There's another 1.5 inches of mat throughout the boat with an extra 24 ounce of roving below the waterline, and this covers the bilge all the way to the stern, fore and aft. Of course, the deck has balsa coring. The hull is 100% fiberglass, very solid construction, and actually quite heavy duty for a boat this size. This boat has a 7/8 fractional rig, and it boasts about 220 square feet of sail. The Halman 21 came out a number of years later. Basically, it's the exact same boat with a higher level of finish on the interior. There's bronze portholes and some wood finish. It also has a bowsprit, which helps the boat in upwind handling. All right, let's see here. I'm going to go down inside here. There's some wasps flying around. I'm going to try not to get stung. Let's go down in here. The mast is in the way, and it's difficult to get inside here. Here we go. All right, let's get down here, see what we got here. All right, so just 2 steps down, companionway, and we're inside the boat. Here, let me show you. This will give you an idea of the headroom inside here. This is the hatch right here, and I'm pretty much standing up, so it basically goes to the top of my chest here. Maybe, what is that, 4 feet, 5 feet, probably a little bit less. So let's see here. All right, here we go. We're inside the boat here.
The first thing you notice once you're inside the boat is that while there may only be 5 feet of standing headroom, there's definitely sitting headroom inside the boat. This is really kind of something unusual in a 20-foot sailboat. Most of the small sailboats that I show on my channel, there's really not that much room inside, and for a big guy, there's no sitting headroom and definitely no standing headroom.
All right, I'm inside the boat here, and, so there's enough room to sit inside here, basically. I'm on the cushions here at the settee. There's one on each side here. We've got a small sink here. And the wood looks pretty good. It looks like it's complete. There's some indication, that maybe, I don't know if the portholes are leaking. Probably there might be some issues with some of the deck. The thing is that this boat is so heavy duty in its construction that even, if there's water getting into the deck or something like that, it's still, so overbuilt that I think
it would take very little to maybe do some repairs on here, especially some cosmetic ones. Everything I'm seeing looks to me to be cosmetic. The only exception is the keel. We'll talk about that in a second. All right. So what I want to do is I want to kind of get up under the inside here so we can get an idea what the deck looks like there. There's some discoloration, so, it's an indication that maybe, I don't know, there could be some water intrusion. There probably is. If the boat's from, 1981, the chances that there's not leaks, at the deck fittings and stuff like that is pretty remote. So, but let's take a look at that. I'm looking at these spots up here and this discoloration and what have you. And like a lot of old boats, right? People own them and they just drill holes everywhere. I don't know what they're thinking, but you definitely shouldn't drill holes from the outside, right? And not seal them properly. But you also shouldn't be drilling holes from the inside and not drilling them properly, because what that means is that becomes a way for water to kind of migrate from other places, and water travels in the balsa core and just goes everywhere. And then every one of these discoloration spots is probably some type of, perforation somewhere in the deck, and they all got to be patched and cleaned. And don't drill holes without sealing them properly. That's the only thing I can say. Who knows whether they drilled it on the outside, they didn't use the right sealant, or the sealant fails over time, or whatever. On a boat like this, heavy weather sailing, things are going to move over time. And I don't see backing blocks behind where some of the stanchions are mounted. They have very thick pads that they're mounted on that are part of the deck, but I don't see anything under the deck here, which would probably be a good modification to make. This cabin surface is not bad, although there's just all kinds of screws and hooks and crazy things that someone put in here. It should really be something if someone spent some time on it. That's a shame. All right, that's kind of cool. I mean, you got a lot of, obviously the deck fittings have got to be resealed, right? And you probably got some fiberglass repair to do in here. That looks good. So you got real seacocks, which is good. All right, this is your sink here. They got this crazy stuff everywhere. All right, we got let's see, cushions, PFDs. Nice. There's going to be your depth sounder right there. Nice. Okay. Filthy, but another more of these back here. This all looks good here. It's hot inside here. I had to pick a day that's like 80 degrees outside to do this. I'm just looking at the cushions now. They're actually in very good shape. And the foam appears to be new. And I'm just kind of wiping them down. I see no discoloration, no gunk stuck on there. They just need to be probably washed. Everything's dusty. Got spider webs on it. So yeah, this is good news. I'm very happy with this. Now I've got a 2004 or 5 Yamaha 4-stroke 4 horsepower outboard. Goes on the back bracket back here. So this is going to be a head sail, probably a small working head sail, maybe even a storm sail. We'll see. Nice. All right. Look, so it's old, but it's still stiff. Look at that. Filthy. But I have sailed with sails worse than this. Not bad. It's pretty good. All right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. All right, and I'm not talking about me. We got to talk about this floor here, and the keel. So one of the things you need to know about these boats is that the Halman 20 and 21, unlike the Nordica 20 sailboats, right? The Halman 20 boats have a one-piece hull. There's one mold. They lay the entire hull and the ballast is put inside of the keel. On a Nordica 20, the hull is assembled in two halves. One half, another half, and they glue the two together, and then they fill it with ballast, right? So this makes the Halman 20 more desirable than the Nordica 20, also because it has the cutaway forefoot on the keel, which allows the boat to point a little bit higher into the wind, gives it a little bit better handling. Not to say that there's anything wrong with the Nordica 20, but it was a design modification that was made to kind of improve the handling of the boat. The ballast on these boats is steel punchings, right? This is a very common practice done during the 70s and 80s. When they needed ballast to put in a boat, they didn't put lead because it was too expensive. They would just take pieces of junk iron or steel that they would get. Often the punchings from a factory, they're disposing of all this kind of waste, and it's steel, it's iron, and they would give it away. Boat companies would scoop it up and use it as ballast in their builds. Very small pieces. I'm going to show you what we've got here, and it fills up the inside of the keel here. That's what creates the ballast. Now, over the years, if water gets into that ballast material, it will rust. And of course, the rust causes the material to expand a little bit. And this can present a problem, especially if you have a hull that is made of two halves. But when you have a solid one-piece hull, and it's particularly robust like it is on this boat, that expansion has to go somewhere. It tends to come out the top. It tends to come out the floor that you have right above the keel, the sole. Let me show you. All right, so let me show you this. This is the cabin sole for the boat, right? This is the floor. And right below here is the keel. And this is obviously loose. And in fact, you can see the orange around the edge here. That's an indication of rust, of water getting into the ballast. And it probably flooded to at least this level for a period of time. Let's lift this up, take a look. Oh, look at that. All right, so so this is what we got here. Let me see this here. Look at this. Oh, very good. Look at this. All right. So, well, the good news is that from poking around on it, the top layer, maybe 1 inch, maybe 2, is loose, but below that, it's hard. And it is these pieces encased in something. I don't know what it is. So this is very, very good. I didn't really get a lot of information from the previous owners, but I know that they actually sailed it on Lake St. Clair as recently as 2023, 2024. They were just kind of using it as a all-weather boat, just putting it through its paces. The young guy, was kind of testing his mettle, sailing in big weather when he could get the chance.
Now, is this a deal breaker? Is this the time that you should just walk away from this boat? I don't know. Certainly, if you're a newbie, this is probably a very big project for someone with no experience. But if you watch my channel, I always talk about building your shop skills over time, working yourself up from one project to the next so that you have some ability and you can undertake a restoration drama-free. Boat restorations are no different than car or motorcycle restorations. You just have to plan ahead, have some skills and resources, and the gumption to make it happen.
I don't know. This is... I'd be interested in undertaking this here repair. I personally wouldn't be put off by this, but it's a lot of physical labor and perhaps maybe something that a younger person should attempt. I like it. Everything's dry. It has been sitting covered in my boatyard now for a year and a half. Totally dry because I put a tarp over it and got it all kind of taken care of. Now that it's dry, you can see the potential if you could eliminate some of the water leaks and kind of get this thing together. What would I do with this? I think you have two choices with this boat. If I was 20 some years old again, I would look at it two ways. On the one hand, you could take this boat and you could probably start sailing it today. With very little effort, maybe some fresh lines, for the mast and stuff like that, you could start sailing right now. You've got decent sails, even though they're original and old. Basically, everything inside the boat is complete. It's very, very simple. It would benefit tremendously from being cleaned. I might, just start sailing it, kind of beat the heck out of it and learn to sail, a small boat that has big boat characteristics. You could really put this thing out there probably in some bad weather and gain a lot of experience. Another way of looking at this would be, if you were going to restore a small trailerable boat, if you were looking for a sailboat project and you wanted something that was going to retain its value, appreciate in value based off of you doing work on it, this would be a boat to do that to. This is only one of two boats in North America, boat brands that you could conceivably sail across an ocean, one of them being a Flicka 20, the other one being the Halman 20. And I would put a Halman 20 over a Nordica 20 just because of the one-piece hull.
Reality is that it takes time and money and physical effort and a lot of commitment. If you're going to restore an old boat, you may as well restore an old boat that's worth something. Just because a boat is free or it's buried in someone's backyard doesn't mean it's worth your time, effort, or money.
The second option is you do a full restoration on this boat. You go through this boat top to bottom. You rebed all the deck hardware. You paint the deck. You paint the hull. You put new sails in, new simple electrical system. You dress out the interior the way you like it, repair the ballast, do everything you need to do to bring this thing back 100%. We already know what that costs. We know what that's like because I've done something very similar on many boats before, and I showed the whole process on my Skipper 20 restoration. You can check that out. You could consider putting a pilot house on this boat. I heard of someone turning it into a pocket trawler. There's all manner of things you could do on this boat.
Certainly in this boat, you've got to deal with the leaky deck fittings. You might have to deal with leaky portholes, but those look in pretty good shape. And I've already done an episode about building a pilot house, and I use this type of porthole. It's very simple to do DIY. You got deck leaks, you might have some damaged core. I don't know that it matters on a boat that has this type of layup. You might just be able to, plug the leaks, do some spot core repair, throw some epoxy on there with the fiberglass, and be on your way. Because it's a bare hull and it doesn't have carpet, doesn't have any of that, you could put indoor-outdoor carpet all throughout this inside here. It'd be awesome. But honestly, some paint might really kind of do the thing. The big issue is dealing with this ballast, this floor in here. And I have a couple of ideas on how you would perhaps fix that. I've done a bunch of research. What a lot of Halman owners do is they pull out this loose ballast. It's apparently about 2 feet of loose steel punchings. Some of it may be encased in either concrete or some sort of resin, but the top layer is loose. And it takes about 10 5-gallon buckets to kind of drag out the material that's inside here. They get it out of here, and then they replace the ballast with lead bars or lead moldings that they put inside there to bring the ballast back up, stiffens the boat a little bit. But more importantly, because lead's denser and it weighs more, they're able to lower the floor by several inches, and in some cases create standing headroom inside here. I don't know how that would be possible for somebody who's 6 foot, but if you're a smaller person, maybe it would make a significant difference having some standing headroom. This would be probably the proper repair on this. If I was just going sailing and I was going to kind of use the boat and not really do much other than clean it, put a coat of paint on it, patch some leaks, I would probably replace this floor sole with a piece of Kusa board. Probably a piece of 3/4 Kusa board with some fiberglass on it, and I would 5200 it or bolt it and screw it in place into the flange there to get it to kind of
seal off the floor, I think. And maybe before I do that, I'd also put some rust inhibitor on this layer of ballast in here. Just kind of pour it in there and let it do its thing. Then seal this whole thing up and be on my way. Certainly the keel is it's a lot of manual effort, but I don't think that it's impossible. The big question might be the expense of having to buy the lead to put back inside here, because I was looking on Facebook Marketplace and lead is running anywhere, $1.80 to $2 a pound. So you would need X number of pounds to kind of replace what you're taking out. You'd have to figure out what that costs. It'd be an investment in this boat. And I suppose once you got to that stage, you'd be doing sales and stuff like that also. That's for a full restoration. I think for $5,000, you could do this boat restoration. Probably more than 400 man hours. And, but at the end, you might have a $10,000 to $15,000 ocean going pocket cruiser. That's my thoughts. I don't know. I'd be curious to hear what you think. Let me know. We'll have a conversation about it. Put a comment and do me a favor, hit the like button. I wish I had time to undertake a project like this, because I think this boat could go from $1,000 special behind a barn on a farm to a $10,000 to $15,000 ocean crossing pocket cruiser. That I keep finding these special boats. Each one is like a diamond. Oh, look at this one. It's more precious than the last one. They're like little precious gems. Each one is more unusual and special than the last one. I'm glad I rescued this thing, from, its state when I found it. But I think it's got to go to someone younger than me, someone with a little bit of ambition, someone who wants to take it and go sailing.
And on that note, thanks for stopping by. I'll see you next time. Stay motivated.